Welcome to this video on thinking, your personal power. How can something intangible, like a thought, be the source of your personal power? By the time we're done with this video, I hope I will have answered that question. But I must also add that thoughts can also be your personal demise. Yeah, it works both ways. Thoughts are like fire and water. They can both help you build the life you want and even save it on occasion, but they can also destroy and kill you, depending on how they are used. So it is with your mind. Thoughts can help you build the life you want, or they can destroy it, based on how you choose to think. You don't have control over the thoughts that just pop into your head, but you do have control over whether or not you entertain them and what thoughts you choose to replace them with. Thoughts can be self-fulfilling prophecies to your benefit or detriment, so it's time to learn how to use your thought power to your best advantage. This video on thinking is part of the Love and Life Skills series for healing the relationships with yourself and others, compiled and presented by Helen Bair, and that's me. I hope you've been watching the other videos in this series because they all work together to teach some pretty powerful lessons. If you're watching this on YouTube and you need help finding those other videos, look on the directions below and they will get you there. So let's start by talking about your brain. To my understanding, your thinking and feelings come from different parts of the same brain. Your thinking is a function of the left hemisphere, which manifests as logic, rules, analytic, rationality, objectivity, language, and is the only part of the brain that has the ability to choose for itself. This is the conscious mind. From the right hemisphere stems your feelings, creativity, imagination, intuition, art, spirituality, and this is your subconscious, or the submerged part of your mind, which cannot choose for itself, but is an obedient servant to the thoughts of the conscious mind. It creates reactions that match the thoughts you choose. The first extreme or imbalance is being totally over-logical. Intellect rules and you ignore feelings. The other extreme is when all decisions are based on emotion alone. Little thought is put into choices. Balance is using your feelings and logic together in decision making. Let's start by talking about thinking. When there are so many people who do powerful things, why would I make the claim that something intangible like thinking is probably your most powerful personal resource? Well, here's the answer. Because almost everything these people have done begins with a thought in their minds. To change who you are, change who you think you are. Just about everything follows thought. You get to choose what you think, but with that freedom, do you ever find yourself thinking thoughts like these? Well, here's what you need to understand about those seemingly innocent thoughts. Thoughts create. The law of abundance says, what you think, you create. What you put out comes back. What you focus on grows. And here's why. The subconscious mind is an obedient servant to the thoughts chosen by the conscious mind. So when you choose thoughts, your subconscious mind creates feeling and body reactions that match. We often point to our feelings as the cause of the problem, but they're only giving you a reaction that matches your thoughts, past or present. So feelings are not the source of your problem, it's your thinking that needs to be corrected, and then the feelings naturally follow. Let's take it a step further and talk about perception. You may have heard that perception is the lens through which you see your world. Simply put, perception is what you choose to think about every life experience, which you can change at will. Here's an example. Something really bad happens and you think, oh, what's wrong with me because bad things keep happening to me? Or you can think, Life is full of ups and downs. I'll find a way to get through this. What you choose to think will have more of an impact on your reaction to the experience than the event itself or how others treat you. Maybe this will help you understand why. The subconscious is the same mind you lived in as a child. It doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy and just believes what it's told, as if it's true. For example, when you tell this small little girl a fairy tale, she simply believes it, as if it were true. After all, don't we live Santa Claus through small children because they believe? When that same child begins to develop her conscious mind around 8 to 10 years old, then she starts to become more rational, logical, and analytical. And if someone hasn't already told her, she can usually figure out the reality of Santa Claus for herself. At some point, the conscious mind becomes completely dominant, and the subconscious mind non-dominant. However, this submerged part of your mind still works the same, believing everything it's told as truth. Only now it believes everything your conscious mind thinks and everything your conscious mind allows to come in without screening it first. The conscious mind is the gatekeeper of all incoming information, and it must use discretion about what it allows to come into your believing subconscious mind. The problem is when the conscious mind is the offender by choosing negative thinking, and then there's no protection. That explains why your power to think can either destroy or help you, depending on how you choose to use it. For a matter of fact, if you imagine something powerfully enough, even when you know you're making it up, your subconscious can still create a like reaction to those thoughts. To help you understand that concept better, I'm going to share with you the secret behind hypnosis. A hypnotist knows that your subconscious mind works that way that I've just explained to you. And if he can find subjects who are willing to pretend and imagine that what he is suggesting is true, he knows that their own subconscious minds will produce body reactions, mind reactions, or emotional reactions that match. You see, a hypnotist has no more power over his subjects than their own willingness to pretend and imagine that what he's suggesting is true. If the subject is too logical or analytical, he knows that nothing's going to happen, and that's why he screens his audience really well at first, to make sure that he has really good subjects who are willing to pretend and imagine what he suggests. Then he knows that their own subconscious minds are going to make this amazing reaction that makes it look like he has some kind of power over them, but he really doesn't. Now, I don't want you to take my word for any of this. I want you to experience this for yourself. So, let's begin by making sure that your hands are free. Eliminate all distractions that include your telephone or your emails coming in, okay? Follow my instructions exactly as I suggest. Okay, so I want you to pretend and imagine that what I am suggesting is true. Being too analytical or skeptical is going to stop the desired reaction. So pure imagination only, please, like a child. Now this short exercise is going to show you the principles that I just told you about on which hypnosis is based. So begin by extending your arms straight out in front of you, palms down. Good. Now, imagine that on the back of your right hand, I'm placing a big, huge rock, just like the one in the picture. Now close your eyes and imagine the weight of that rock. A heavy, heavy burden, maybe 10, 15 pounds, pushing down on your right arm. Notice that the longer it sits there, the heavier it feels. Heavier and heavier, causing your right arm to get lower and lower. Just imagine the load of that heavy rock, causing your right arm to feel fatigued and stressed and tight with that heavy burden pushing your right arm down. Now, with your eyes still shut, imagine that on your left wrist, I'm tying the strings of a bunch of helium balloons. Light, buoyant helium balloons. Imagine that these balloons are so light and fluffy that they are literally beginning to support your left arm, making it feel so relaxed that you may even notice those balloons are now lifting your left arm up higher and higher. You may even notice your left arm feeling weightless, airy, going lighter and higher with the balloons right up there in the air, right up there with the sunshine and the clouds, feeling lighter and lighter, rising, floating, drifting, buoyant, isn't it? You may notice that the lighter and higher the balloons are getting now, on the other hand, the heavier and lower your right arm is getting now because of the weight of the rock. The heavier the rock, the lighter the balloons. Now, freeze your arms exactly where they are and open your eyes. What do you notice? Because I can't see your results, I'll have to speak in general terms. If you followed my instructions to the letter, your right arm should be lower and your left arm higher. Sometimes the difference is drastic, sometimes it's slight. If there is no difference in the distance, then check out the difference in how the two arms feel. Notice if the right one is more tense and tight, and if the left is more relaxed and comfortable. If any of those are the case, you have a good imagination and you followed my directions well. For those of you that nothing happened, you might want to check out the quality of your imagination. Were you being too logical, analytical, skeptical, rather than pretending or imagining? If you want to, you can go back and try it again, but keep all cognitive interference out, except just to imagine that what I suggest is true. Now, for those of you who are ready to go on, you've now seen for yourself how it is possible for your subconscious mind to create a reaction to your thoughts as if they were true, even if they were not. Your conscious mind chose to imagine the rock and balloons as if they really were there, and your subconscious mind, like an obedient servant, or the mind of a small child that doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy, created a reaction in your body that matched your thoughts. Next, I'm going to show you 2 examples of how your subconscious mind can create emotional responses that match your thoughts. If you were to focus on death as being greeted by the Grim Reaper, being buried 6 feet under, alone, and stuck there in the dark, cold ground forever, how would you feel? Well, I feel yucky just talking about it, and I felt awful finding the pictures for this frame. But what would happen if you chose to focus on the exact same event, death, as if the real you emerges into a heavenly, peaceful place? The body you left behind is just a lump of clay. You're happily greeted by loving folks who've passed before you and other glorious beings. Now, doesn't that feel better, just to think of death that way? Well, I won't know what death is like until it happens to me, but in the meantime, I choose to think about it in the most positive way so I can feel peaceful about that inevitable reality. So if what you think you create, you can traumatize yourself by dwelling on negative thoughts. Here's an example. John was emotionally abused by his parents. As an adult, John picked up where Mom and Dad left off by constantly criticizing himself. As painful as John's childhood was, his current thinking habits continued the abuse well into adulthood. With all this in mind, I hope you're beginning to realize how important it is for you to safeguard all the information that goes into your mind, whether it's from external sources or from your own thinking. Because what you think grows. Your mind is a garden. Your thoughts are seeds. You can grow flowers or you can grow weeds. The inner speech, your thoughts, can cause you to be rich or poor, loved or unloved, happy or unhappy, attractive or unattractive, powerful or weak. The famous motivational speaker Zig Ziglar said, "We all need a daily checkup from the neck up to avoid stinkin' thinking." Following are some typical examples of the wrong way to think and some ideas of positive thinking to replace it. It is an absolute necessity for me to be loved and approved of by everyone all the time. Now, that would be really hard to live, wouldn't it? Let's try this instead. It is absolutely necessary for me to love myself. Then I can be okay if others don't love me. I must be perfect in every way all the time. Well, that would be tough to live, wouldn't it? Try this. Perfect for me is trying my best. It is my responsibility to make everyone happy, which of course is impossible. Let's try, I only have control over making myself happy. I like that one better. If I ignore problems, they will go away. Facing problems head on is the best way to fix them. Being wrong or showing my ignorance is unthinkable. Admitting my ignorance leaves me open to learning. If I'm good enough, I can change other people. No, I only have the power to change me. There's a lot more of these in the supplementary material for this chapter, so look them over and practice coming up with your own positive comebacks. Here's another really important point. It's not only what you currently think that gives you feedback, but the perceptions you placed on each life event in the past that is now stored in memory. I'm sure you know what I mean by that, because on occasion we all have recall of memories that are still as pleasant or as painful as the first time we experienced them, right? Well, those memories, or even the ones you don't remember, are still reflecting back in your life to some degree, such as the woman who can never have confidence in any man, even if he's trustworthy, because she couldn't depend on her father when she was a child, or the old man who still harbors great self-doubt because when he was little, he was bullied at school. So this is how that happens. Just like programming works in a computer, everything that is stored in memory behaves like programming in your mind computer. A regular computer responds according to how it's been programmed. Your mind computer does the same. From all these memories accumulated over time, you may have developed some powerful beliefs that seem to unconsciously drive you or influence the decisions that you're making now. Some are good, some may be toxic, but all have an impact in your life today. So what do you do with these toxic beliefs when they just pop in your head out of nowhere? Well, this is what I want you to start doing. Notice them. Learn what they're trying to tell you. Don't make your life choices based on them. They're probably just feedback from some earlier time. You can begin correcting them by replacing them with positive thoughts, like these. Here's a few minefields that I want you to watch out for. Let's start with worry. As you just learned, if you choose to worry, you can traumatize yourself as if what you're worrying about is going to happen, even if it never does. Instead, let your advanced worrying become advanced thinking and planning. Enmeshed thinking or poor intellectual boundaries may be another one of those minefields that keep us from thinking for ourselves. You're only okay if you think the same as me. I better conform. People who love each other have to think exactly alike. I cannot make a decision independent from my family, spouse, friends, religion, whatever. Good intellectual boundaries look something like this. I can accept others who believe differently while holding on to my own beliefs. I don't expect you to read my mind, so I'll tell you what I think. I'll take your opinion into account, but ultimately make my own decisions. That's good intellectual boundaries. Now let's talk a little bit about critical thinking. Don't believe everything the media and internet or whatever they tell you. Whoever they are may not have your best interest in mind. Stop thinking someone knows more about you than you do because of their position, education, charisma, or things like that. Don't be like sheep. If one sheep goes over a cliff, all the other sheep follow, even to their demise. When it comes to thinking, don't just go with the crowd. Think for yourself. Obedience without critical judgment and inner freedom led to Nazism, the Jonestown mass suicide, and the My Lai massacre. If you don't recognize those events, do some research. You'll see how a mass of people allowed a few charismatic leaders to destroy many innocent people. Cults feed on mindless people who depend on others to do their critical thinking for them. A wise man makes his own decisions. An ignorant man follows public opinion. There is a time that it's appropriate to think with the group, like making plans for a family or a company, but everyone's opinions are part of the planning. But you need to be able to think independently of the group as well. It's actually wise to be prepared for both. Be careful when you're being passively entertained by TV, the internet, media, ads, video games, or the like. If your conscious mind is not guarding all incoming information carefully, your subconscious mind may be soaking in undesirable material. Or you may find yourself buying things you don't want and believing or behaving in ways that are against your better judgment. There are many people out there who go out of their way to learn how to entertain, confuse, or distract your conscious mind so they can interject suggestions into your subconscious mind, which they're hoping will influence your decisions. Also, be very cautious about using any mind-altering substances. Mind-altering says it all. They can shift your mind and ability to think for yourself to some degree or another. On the other hand, there are times when these things are very helpful for medical purposes, so make sure that you use them only under the direction of a competent professional who is licensed to prescribe, and follow the directions exactly. Whenever you mess with your mind's ability to think clearly for itself, you are making yourself dependent on someone or something else. To tie this up, let's look at some extremes in thinking. On one side, we have gullible, too dependent on other people's thinking, believe anything anybody tells them. The other extreme, closed-minded, too much pride to learn anything new. They already know everything. Balance is to be open to learning new information, but careful and wise about what you embrace. Here's a thought that applies to that extreme of being closed-minded. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. None of us know everything, and it's foolish to assume that you don't need to learn anything else. If you have good intellectual boundaries and your critical thinking is intact, you can take a look at new information and screen out what you don't want to adopt and then keep what applies to you. But you may ask, what if I make a mistake? And the answer is, if you do, the consequences will teach you that that doesn't work. And then you have gained wisdom. I hope you're beginning to realize that the power to sculpt your own life and happiness is inside of you. Daily, chisel out the best thinking habits possible. Use your power to think to its ultimate capacity. After all, it's your job to make sure that inside of your skin is the most desirable place on earth for you to be. So if your mind computer is full of negative programming, then you already know how hard that is to live with and work around. How can you tell yourself you're good enough when the voice in your head keeps reminding you that you're a loser, right? Well, here's the good news. Subconscious repairing therapy, or SRT, is designed to enter your subconscious mind according to the way it operates and give it instructions in the way it understands, so that you can repair and reprogram those negative life events, along with the emotions and beliefs that are stored with them. SRT is like cleaning the slate, or reprogramming your mind computer, that gives you a chance to recreate better programming so you get better feedback. That, combined with upgrading your current thinking habits, gives you a high-powered recipe for self-empowerment. Changing your mind is a cognitive choice, but changing your subconscious mind requires some assistance. So visit findingthehealer.com and watch the introductory videos to learn how it works. I hope you will choose to join me on the next video of Love and Life Skills series, which is all about feelings. Feelings are feedback that come as a direct result of your thinking habits, past and present. Maybe by watching this next video, you can understand and get a handle on some of those pesky feelings that keep messing with your life and replace them with better ones. So have a great rest of your day or night or whatever it is. Just have a good one. Bye for now.